Earlier today, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu made this promise to the people of Israel.
אזרחי ישראל, הבטחתי לכם ניצחון ונשיג ניצחון. נשלים את חיסול החמאס, נשיב את כל חטופינו, נבטיח שעזה לא תהווה עוד איום על ישראל, ונחזיר את תושבי הצפון בבטחה לבתיהם. המלחמה לא תסתיים עד שנשיג את כל יעדיה, ובכלל זה עד שלא נשיב את תושבי הצפון בבטחה הביתה.
Former Israel Defense Forces spokesperson and senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, joins me. Good evening, sir. What is left of Hezbollah at this point? Because it had so many missiles, so many rockets, was so heavily armed, much more than Hamas. So what's left of Hezbollah tonight?
Yeah, good afternoon, Greta. Thank you for having me. What's left is, I would say, number 4 and 5, if we have gone through the number 1, 2s, and 3s in the chain of command and their successors. And in terms of military capability, less than half of what Hezbollah had before October 7 and before they launched their attack on Israel. Less than half of their military capabilities are left. They've sustained quite significant blows to their logistics, to their financial system, and to their combat capabilities, but they are not defeated. They still exist, and they still are an important, perhaps the most important political and military party in Lebanon. And we shouldn't think or be confused that Hezbollah is done and no longer a threat. It very much is. And there's still a very clear threat towards Israeli civilians.
You know, the ceasefire is with Lebanon, not with Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is financed by Iran. We just heard Khamenei say that Prime Minister Netanyahu should be executed. And as much as I'm delighted to hear that there's a ceasefire tonight, I must admit that I'm highly skeptical, and I think that Hezbollah, if history repeats itself, is merely going to rearm and get ready and to continue to. I've been in those tunnels, you know, that they've had from Lebanon into Israel. Do you share my skepticism, or do you think this is, you know, this is not just Hezbollah catching its breath for 60 days?
Yeah, this temporary ceasefire, in my mind, only makes sense if it is a temporary measure for Israel to regain capabilities, replenish its arsenal, and get ready to take on the real menace and threat in the region, which is the Iranian regime. You mentioned it, and you gave an example of how hostile, belligerent, and very dangerous the Iranian regime is. And I think that is what Israel needs to be focusing on. So if this ceasefire agreement will enable Israel to do that, hopefully with American support, then it's a good thing. If this ceasefire
let me ask you about
is
that. The monitors of this are the United States and France. But France, as I'm sure you remember, I hope the viewers remember, France is the one who said we won't send any more weapons for Israel to defend itself. So I mean, so France isn't exactly. I mean, it would not be my choice if I were the Prime Minister to be monitoring this with the United States.
Correct, I agree. France has proven not to be a friend of democracy and freedom, and has proven to make very, very bad choices to embargo Israel, not to allow Israeli weapons manufacturers to display their goods in the most important weapons sales exhibitions in France twice. And generally speaking, I would say succumbing to Islamist agendas, and perhaps French politicians are carrying votes and are making decisions that I think in the judgment of history will be very, very difficult to defend. But the real thing here is if this ceasefire deal is something that will be a stepping stone towards Israel taking on the Islamic Republic of Iran, then it can be a good achievement. If it is the end of the current situation of hostilities with Hezbollah, it's not such a very good situation because it does not ensure the long-term security for Israeli civilians. It's really, there's no regards for, there's no real safety and provisions of it. And the whole issue of, trusting the Lebanese government to implement its sovereignty and to make sure that Hezbollah doesn't deploy, that hasn't proven itself very successful in the past. And I do not have a lot of faith in the French making sure that happens.
Jonathan Conricus, thank you, sir, and good luck, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.